Tonight, on First at 9 this Friday, the 5th of December 2025. So soon monsoons. Northeast monsoons loom over Sri Lanka. Incessant rains to pick up after the 9th of December, forecasts the Met. No man left behind. Search and rescue operations to locate the missing still underway. NBRO urges vigilance as landslide threats loom. The presidential promise. President Derana addresses Sri Lanka's legislature. Vows substantial relief for those affected by inclement weather. Budget ballot. 2026 appropriation bill passed in Parliament with a majority of 157 votes. 158 in favour, 1 against.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on the Derana News channel. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, your top story tonight, operations continued island-wide to locate persons missing under debris after massive landslides rocked Sri Lanka in the tragic and devastating aftermath of Cyclone Ditwa. Citing ongoing risks, the National Building Research Organisation urged the general public to remain vigilant and to also promptly adhere to instructions and warnings issued by relevant authorities.
Operations to locate those left missing in the wake of the devastating Cyclone Ditwa continued through the course of the day. As part of search efforts, a mission to locate the missing in Kalaha Gampola was initiated today. Around 11 individuals are reported missing from the area after landslides destroyed their residences. The mission, led by the Sri Lanka Army and residents, resulted in the recovery of the mortal remains of 3 individuals. Meanwhile, the joint operation launched to locate missing persons in Rendapola Valimada continued today. Efforts are being led by the Sri Lanka Police and the Army together with local residents. The remains of 2 individuals have been recovered so far. Residents note that collapsed mounds of earth and massive boulders hinder rescue operations. In the meantime, residents who had to evacuate over landslide-related concerns continue to return to their residences as authorities clear sites struck by earth slips. Voluntary workers have begun to clear a residence located near the 8th mile post on the Badula-Pasura main road that was severely affected by a landslide in the area. Meanwhile, an area in Udugama Rambukana where around 125 families were residing was completely destroyed by the inclement weather. In the meantime, the hillside of Janahitagama in Daraniyagala collapsed onto a scheme of house occupied by about 40 people. Residents of the area noted that the risk of landslides loom over other areas as well. In the meantime, a 3-month-old infant who was separated from her mother was returned to the mother with the intervention of the Sri Lanka Army and the Air Force. The incessant rains also damaged stationery used by school children in the Palugaswava area of Kalavawa and Radhapura. Books which they managed to save from the flood water and rains were promptly dried as part of a broader cleanup effort. Off the back of these developments across the island, the National Building Research Organisation urged the public to remain cautious.
The National Building Research Organisation urges the general public to adhere to all instructions provided as landslide risks still remain. Kindly remain at safe centres as instructed. The northeast monsoon is yet to be established. Risks may arise if rains between 50 to 100 millimetres are experienced.
Level 3 red evacuation alerts were issued to several divisional secretariat divisions within the Kandy, Kegal, Kurunagala, Matule and Nuwara districts. Meanwhile, Level 2 amber landslide warnings were issued to divisional secretariat divisions within the Badulla, Nuwara and Ratnapura districts. Further, Level 1 yellow landslide warnings were issued to divisional secretariat divisions of Colombo, Galle, Gampaha, Kaluthura, Mathura, Monaragala, Nuwara and Ratnapura districts. The Disaster Management Centre's latest report states that a total of 607 deaths have been reported across the island as of 6 p.m. today, with 214 individuals still unaccounted for. Adverse weather conditions prompted by Cyclone Ditwa have severely affected 2,082,195 people belonging to 586,464 families. Currently, 152,537 individuals from 43,715 families were located in 1,211 safety centres across Sri Lanka.
ඔබේ සම හඳුනාගෙන ඖෂධීය ශාකසාරමය
Forever face wash එකක් භාවිතා කරන්න.
අප වෙනුවෙන් කැපවූ ලංකාවේ අපේ අංක 1 ජාලය ඩයලොග්. දවටනේ නියම මිල සඳහන් ස්විස්ටෙක් නිෂ්පාදන මිලදී ගන්න. ස්විස්ටෙක් ගන්න ඕන හොඳම තීරණය.
Now efforts are underway to repair roads, bridges and railway lines severely damaged by landslides while work continues to restore water and supply power to affected areas. Paddy fields and crops in several districts have also been destroyed by the floodwaters, and the value of the crop damage is yet to be ascertained.
Operations to clear and reconstruct roads damaged by landslide continued across several regions. The Ragala-Kandahandia road, which provides access to Nuwara Elia, was blocked in 4 areas due to collapsed mounds of earth. The Road Development Authority today cleared the debris, reopening the route for vehicular traffic. The Badulla Mahiyangane main road, previously blocked by massive rocks and earth, has also been cleared and reopened. Meanwhile, landslides have obstructed multiple points along the Balimada Nuwara Elia main road. Clearance operations are ongoing to restore access for vehicles. The Mathaleri Western Road, damaged by the inclement weather, was cleared today by the Sri Lanka Army. A section of the Anuradhapura Puttalam Road near the Kalahoya Bridge, damaged by the severe weather, was repaired and reopened for traffic today. In Iranavilla, a section of the bridge impaired by the disaster is being repaired by a team of Indian engineers with funding from the Indian government. Temporary construction of the Alahara Anicut embankment, damaged by the spillway waters of the Murugahakanda Reservoir on the 27th of November, continued today. Deputy Minister of Housing, Construction and Water Supply T.B. Sarath visited the site to monitor progress. Meanwhile, sandbags were laid along the embankment of the Thodamadu Reservoir in Tirupane to prevent further damage. The country's railway lines have also suffered severe damage following recent incessant rains and disaster situations. Peradeniya Bridge on the upcountry railway line was severely damaged by the weather. The Chilaw-Puttalam railway line near the Buttaluoya Bridge, which was recently renovated, has also been heavily affected. Repairing the damages imposed on the upcountry railway line from landslides is currently underway. In the meantime, a transmission tower on the Rantabe Mahiyangane 132 kilowatt line has been destroyed, disrupting power supply to areas around Mahiyangane, Batiklo and Ampara. The Ceylon Electricity Board is working day and night to restore power by establishing a 33 kilowatt connection through a temporary transmission tower. Minister of Energy Kumara Jayakodi visited the site today to inspect the restoration efforts. Deputy Minister of Energy Arkham Ilyas also inspected measures to restore the disrupted power supply to the Valimada area. Around 8,000 families were affected by damage to water supply schemes in Valimada, Bomuruella and Ambagastoba. The inclement weather had disrupted water supply to communities in Uwa Paranagama and Valimada, but the schemes have now been repaired. The severity of crop damage caused by high flood waters from heavy rains brought on by Cyclone Ditwa has not yet been fully assessed. Paddy fields and crops in several districts, including Ampara, Polonnaruwa, Kandy, Kurunegala, Gampaha and Colombo, have been destroyed by the floods. The Peradeniya Botanical Gardens sustained severe impact from the heavy rains.
Now, the Department of Meteorology forecasts an increase in rainfall in the island after the 9th of December due to the activation of the northeast monsoon. Meanwhile, residents who were forced to evacuate due to flooding prompted by Cyclone Ditwa are returning back home.
Many districts across the country are still experiencing the after effects of Cyclone Ditwa. Among them is the Polonnaruwa district, where the access road to Pudur village has been damaged, causing significant difficulties for residents. Local residents are requesting government officials to repair the road in order to restore transportation. Meanwhile, the access roads to the Somawati temple also remain inundated. Speaking to the media, Polonnaruwa District Secretary Sujanta Ekanayaka stated that every family affected by the adverse weather in Polonnaruwa will be granted an allowance for cleaning their residences. He further stated that officials are currently assessing the extensive crop damage. Many paddy fields prepared for the Maha season have been severely affected, and some lands are damaged to such an extent that they can no longer be prepared for cultivation. A significant extent of cropland in the Kalpitiya Puttulam area has also been damaged due to inundation. Several areas in Kalpitiya, including Karamba, Setapola, Daluwa, Nirmalapula and Talavila have reported crop damage caused by the adverse weather. Meanwhile, 200 acres of paddy fields in Tammangama and the Mudungoda in Anuradhapura were destroyed due to the overflow of Kalawaya and Kalankuttiya canal, with many fields now covered in silt. Additionally, a section of the Alahara Anikat's earthen embankment, which crosses River Amban and supplies water to farms in Alahara, Giritale, Mineria, Kaudulla and Kantale, has been damaged by floods. Temporary repairs to the embankment are currently underway, with Deputy Minister of Housing T.B. Sarath present. Meanwhile, cleaning operations at the Peradeniya Botanical Gardens, which were submerged due to flooding, commenced today. Residents of Palakuda Maka in Gampola have also begun cleaning their homes that were submerged. Meanwhile, the Indian National Disaster Response Force has purified wells in the Tiharia, Varana and Kattot areas of Attanagalla, as well as Nigambo and Katan areas, which were contaminated due to the overflow of Attanagaluoya. In the meantime, cleaning operations were also carried out today at the Murugan Kovil in Manampitiya, which was submerged due to flooding in the area. Meanwhile, people who moved to safer locations due to the overflowing of River Kalani are still engaged in cleaning their homes. Several cleaning operations also took place in Malwana town. Meanwhile, residents of Kochikade and Nigambo, which were severely affected by floods, have begun cleaning their houses. In such a context, the Department of Meteorology forecasts an increase in rainfall in the island after the 9th of December.
Usually, the northeast monsoon is active in Sri Lanka between December and February. During this period, thunder showers are less frequent compared to the intermonsoon period. However, the northeast monsoon is expected to become active after the 9th of this month. As a result, an increase in rainfall can be expected between the 9th and 11th of this month in the northern, north central, northwestern, eastern and Ua provinces. These areas may experience showers or thunder showers at any time. Cloudy conditions are likely in these provinces, with 75 to 100 millimeters of rainfall expected in several areas. Due to strong winds in other provinces, especially northeastern regions, thunder showers may occur, but they will not be as intense as those experienced during the intermonsoon period. These showers are likely to occur in the evening or at night. After the 9th, heavy rainfall, strong winds and the possibility of rough seas are expected. We will continue to provide weather forecasts in the coming days and request that the fishing and marine communities stay updated and follow our advisories.
Several areas in the country experienced rainfall this evening as well. The Tri-Forces and police continue extensive relief operations for communities affected by Cyclone Ditwa. A contingent of army personnel reached Mimore, one of the worst affected areas where road access remains heavily disrupted, and delivered vital medical supplies to residents in need. Meanwhile, the Air Force is conducting nationwide relief missions, providing emergency assistance and support to families impacted by the adverse weather. In the past few days, 601 people, including children, pregnant women, patients and foreign nationals, have been rescued and relocated to safety through 250 air missions.
Now, the Disaster Management Unit in Polonnaruwa has warned that the Moragahakanda Reservoir is currently at a critically high level, reaching 97.87% of its storage capacity. Officials say that any significant rainfall over the next few days could push the reservoir to full capacity. Authorities have urged the public living downstream and in low-lying areas to remain vigilant, as the situation may require controlled release of water depending on weather conditions. Now, Deputy Minister of Tourism Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe reveals that the tourism industry is gradually picking up as Sri Lanka's transport and road network is gradually getting back on track in the wake of the destruction left by Cyclone Ditwa. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Public Health Inspectors Association notes that around 60% of water sources around the island have been chlorinated already as part of broader efforts to curb possible epidemic outbreaks.
Against a backdrop of all main roads across the island brought back to normalcy, the Deputy Minister of Tourism, Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe, asserted that activity pertaining to the tourism industry is gradually recommencing. As Sri Lanka's road network and transport sector gets back on track, Deputy Minister of Tourism, Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe, reveals that the tourism sector is gradually picking up.
Our wildlife parks, cultural triangle attractions, all these things have been open for visitors and things are much under control. Now the government's key focus is on rebuilding.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Public Health Inspectors Association says that the primary focus of public health inspectors is to prevent epidemics that may emerge following a disaster, especially within safety centres.
There is a possibility of the spread of diseases such as jaundice, typhoid fever and diarrhea post-disaster. PHIs have commenced operations to chlorinate and clean all water sources in a bid to prevent this possibility. 60% of these operations are complete. A massive number of livestock have perished at the moment. PHIs are duty-bound to ensure that these carcasses don't end up in the market.
Nearly 60 fuel stations were submerged due to the recent incessant rains prompted by Cyclone Ditwa. Taking this situation into consideration, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation asserted that operations to renovate affected filling stations are currently underway.
36 filling stations were completely submerged and operations were halted consequently. 14 of those filling stations are yet to be restored. 5 of those filling stations in Kandy are inaccessible. Restoring those filling stations will take some time.
30% discount on Apico Farm and Spring mattresses available at Apico Supercenter and Apico Daily.
Musa Phoenix Natal Fiesta November 13 සිට 16 දක්වා අනුරාධපුර ස්පොට්නික් ක්‍රීඩා පිටියේදී.
Now, a 7-day Buddhist memorial service for those who passed away due to landslides and floods was held this evening at the Kalaniya Rajamahawihara. The service was led by more than 100 monks who arrived in Kalaniya upon the invitation of the chief incumbent of the historic Kalaniya Rajamahawihara, Most Venerable Professor Kollupitiya Mahinda Sangarakita Mahathera. Representatives of political parties, including leader of the Sarvajana Balaya Parliamentary Dilith Jayavira, along with many local and foreign devotees, attended the service. Following the program, MP Dilith Jayavira pledged to launch a fund to support the rebuilding of religious establishments of all faiths that were damaged by the severe weather. Welcome back. Now, Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma, announces that the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund has so far received nearly 700 million rupees in contributions from Sri Lankans living overseas. Recovery efforts continue to gain strong international and community support, with millions in donations, vital relief shipments and new aid commitments flowing in from across the world.
Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma, announced that the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund has so far received nearly 700 million rupees in contribution from Sri Lankans living overseas.
More than 30,470 contributions have been made to the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund. So far, France has contributed the largest amount, followed by significant donations from Canada, the United States and Korea.
Meanwhile, the chief incumbent of the Hunupitiya Gangaramaya Temple, Venerable Dr. Kirinde Assajitero, contributed 30 million rupees to the government's Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund. Meanwhile, a team carrying relief supplies gathered by the Lankarama Temple in Singapore and the humanitarian group Willing Hearts arrived in Sri Lanka yesterday to assist communities affected by recent disasters. The Singaporean delegation visited the Presidential Secretariat today, where they met with the Secretary to the President, Dr. Nandika Sanath Kumar Nayaka. A Malaysian delegation comprising a group of religious leaders also met Secretary to the President, Dr. Nandika Sanath Kumar Nayaka at the Presidential Secretariat. During the meeting, they pledged long-term support for the Rebuilding Sri Lanka initiative, reaffirming their commitment to ongoing humanitarian and development efforts. The Maldives has delivered 25,000 boxes of canned fish to Sri Lanka to support communities affected by recent disasters. The consignment was formally received in Colombo in the presence of the Maldivian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka and other high officials. Meanwhile, a $3 million grant pledged by the Asian Development Bank to support the country's disaster relief efforts was also officially signed today. Meanwhile, the Australian government yesterday announced the granting of an additional $2.5 million in aid to support Sri Lanka's ongoing recovery efforts. The commitment and mobilization of Sri Lankans living in Australia to raise awareness and gather assistance for those affected by the disaster have been so significant that the issue was even brought up before the Victorian State Parliament, drawing widespread attention and support.
Speaker, I want to acknowledge and thank Sinantha Jayathiklaka, Dr. Randi Fernando and Chandra Bamuna Singh, community leaders, for springing into action in raising funds and mobilising donations of packaged goods to send to Sri Lanka. Sadly, not enough of the Western media has focused on this massive disaster.
Meanwhile, the IMF is working with Sri Lankan authorities and partners to assess the humanitarian, social and economic impact of recent disasters, said Julie Kozak, Director of the IMF Communications Department. She noted that a clearer picture of the economy will emerge once local authorities complete their damage assessments. The IMF will continue supporting Sri Lanka's recovery and reforms under its comprehensive loan facility, with the Executive Board set to review progress on December 15th.
Now, meanwhile, IMF Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Evan Papageorgiou, in a statement notes that Sri Lankan authorities have requested financial assistance from the IMF under the Rapid Financing Instrument, or RFI, for SDR 150.5 million, which is approximately 26% of the quota, or about $200 million US. The request is currently under consideration and subject to approval by the IMF's Executive Board. In the statement, the IMF extended their deepest sympathies to the people of Sri Lanka who have been profoundly affected by Cyclone Ditwa in the wake of its devastating impact and widespread destruction. The IMF notes that it remains closely engaged with Sri Lankan authorities during this challenging period and is committed to supporting the country as it undertakes urgent efforts to recover, rebuild and promote resilience for the future. Now, the third reading of the appropriation bill for the year 2026 was passed in Parliament this evening with a majority of 157 votes. 158 members of Parliament voted in favour of the 2026 budget, while only one MP voted against it and two others abstained from voting. Addressing the House prior to the vote, President Anura Dissanayake pledged substantial financial assistance to those affected by adverse weather. All members and officials of the Committee on Public Finance arrived here before the start of the parliamentary sitting and assisted in completing the formalities to allocate 72.5 billion rupees to provide relief to disaster-affected communities during the next 4 weeks. I am grateful to all of them. A few days ago, a program on a major TV channel featured irrigation engineer Surya Bandara and the head of the Department of Meteorology. The irrigation engineers said the weather forecast issued on a program that aired on the 12th of November was taken into consideration by the irrigation department. The BBC predicted rains between 400 to 500 millimeters in Sri Lanka. The cyclone had already hit Sri Lanka by the night of the 27th of November. On the 28th, during a party leaders meeting chaired by the president, some government MPs told him that the Disaster Management Centre was not responding to calls received on its 2 hotlines. That is when the President ordered 10 new hotline numbers to be introduced. Emergency hotlines that were supposed to manage the disaster weren't even functional. The accusation of government inaction is baseless since the government was not informed that the cyclone would cause a disaster of this extent. We cannot stop the cyclone, but as soon as it hit, the government mobilized to rescue, house and feed the affected communities. An opinion was planted within society that the government failed to act. However, it has been admitted both locally and internationally that the state intervened immediately. The government seems to hate the media these days. It is because of the media that even the government was made aware of the situation in some areas. However, warnings issued on television are not very specific. If police and Gramanilidari officers broadcast evacuation warnings via loudspeakers, people would have grasped the seriousness of the situation. If so, casualties could have been minimized, maybe not all, but at least 50%. Since 10 in the morning on the 25th of November, when the Department of Meteorology issued warnings of the cyclone, the government implemented every possible measure. Police and local government representatives evacuated most communities. Some chose not to leave. That is true. Whatever lies the opposition spreads, the public is aware of the ground reality. This time, for the first time, we will not oppose this government's budget. However, that is not an expression of support towards the government. The budget must definitely be amended. To tell you the truth, there is no point in passing this budget, which was drafted prior to the disaster. Therefore, funds allocated to the Housing Ministry is insufficient. The budget must be amended in view of the disaster situation. We heard a government MP accusing Derana. Derana did not target a political party. They only had a conversation with the Director General of the Department of Meteorology. The red star is displayed on government vehicles belonging to the Hakmana Pradesha Sabha. I asked the government to not stoop this low. If the water levels of the reservoirs were managed properly, the floods could have been prevented. We don't blame the government over landslides. They are inevitable. However, the Minister and Deputy Minister of Irrigation were negligent and must resign. The opposition argues that this disaster was forecast on the 12th of November. If the opposition was aware of this, why didn't they inform Parliament? Their failure to do so renders them accountable for the situation as well. They also brought up the red star. It wasn't displayed on vehicles, but people wearing red stars on their caps were engaged in rescue and relief work. This warning was issued by the head of the Department of Meteorology on the 12th of November during a press briefing. His deputy reiterated the same warning on the 23rd. I am tabling these since the government accuses us of lying. Not only us, the BBC on the 25th warned Sri Lanka will receive over 400 to 500 millimeters of rainfall. There is no use in blaming the media. We are not afraid of the government's smear campaigns.
While some districts survived the disaster, significant parts of other districts faced its impact. We all know that we lost several very important lives to this disaster. Some villages have been completely destroyed. This is one of the worst disasters to hit Sri Lanka in recent years. Many lost their lives. The remains of some of the deceased is yet to be recovered. These disappearances are unbearable to families. I have personally experienced this pain. As a country and society, first and foremost, we must extend our condolences to them. We have proposed the imposition of emergency law and we request that this proposal be approved. Ordinary laws are not sufficient at this moment. I assure that the Public Security Act will not be used to violate the democratic rights of the people. Great controversy arose due to a statement by a certain minister. We do not care about criticism against me or any ministers. We do not care about insults at all. However, this is being used to scare and misguide people. There are people who are attempting to disrupt the peaceful conditions and create confusion among the disaster-struck people. This is an obstacle to overcoming this disaster. We will only use the emergency law to address the disaster situation. A parliamentarian said that 1,000 had died in Gampola. If this statement had been made in public, legal action would be taken. We cannot create panic like that in the country. We have informed divisional secretariats that if there are concerns within their jurisdictions, the government is ready to provide funds to address them. Accordingly, around 10.5 billion rupees have now been disbursed to district secretaries. This is unprecedented in Sri Lankan history. We already have 22.2 million rupees now, which means we have 72.2 billion rupees to provide within the next 25 days. While the disaster situation is receding at the moment, we are providing a cleaning allowance of 25,000 rupees each to every affected family. Therefore, this 72.2 billion rupee fund will be used to finance the 25,000 rupee allowance provided to each household to purchase essential equipment regardless of whether they own the house or live there on a rental basis. A one-time grant of 50,000 rupees will be provided to each household. There are displaced people who lost homes due to landslides, and I told you that 5,000 houses were affected by the landslides. If they live in displaced camps, we would like to provide every facility to them and take care of them. However, they might not like to live in these camps, yet they do not have a residence. Therefore, a monthly allowance of 25,000 rupees per family will be provided for 3 months until February 2026 for displaced families moving to houses. We expect to extend this initiative for at least 6 months. Many livelihoods are also affected. The government will provide families who live in camps a monthly allowance of 50,000 rupees from December to February until they move to a new house. This monthly allowance will be granted for 3 months to help restore their livelihoods. An allowance of 150,000 rupees per hectare will be provided for grain crops, including paddy and maize, that have been damaged by adverse weather. An allowance of 200,000 rupees per hectare will be granted for affected vegetable cultivations. These funds will be allocated today and the circular will be issued today. today. The government will provide 200,000 rupees for every registered small and medium-scale business to revive their operations. Also, the central bank issued a circular directing banks to grant moratoriums on the debts owed by these businesses.
The third reading of the 2026 appropriation bill was passed with a majority of 157 votes in Parliament. A total of 158 members of Parliament voted in favour of the 2026 budget, while MP Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam, representing the All Ceylon Tamil Congress, voted against. Another 2 MPs abstained from voting. The final vote on the 2026 appropriation bill commenced today at 7:30 p.m, marking the conclusion of this year's budget process. The committee stage debate constituting the third reading commenced on November 15th and was scheduled to run for 17 days, including 3 Saturdays, concluding on December 5th. Several sittings, however, were adjourned due to adverse weather conditions.
Welcome back. Now, the Derana flood relief operation, in collaboration with Dialogue, continues to support families affected by adverse weather. As residents gradually return home, the need for cleaning supplies and hygiene products has become increasingly urgent.
The Derana flood relief operation was launched in the aftermath of Cyclone Ditwa to support families affected by the severe weather. The Derana dialogue relief effort has been receiving significant donations which are being distributed to affected communities across the country. As residents gradually return to their homes, the requirement for cleaning materials and hygiene products has sharply increased alongside other essential supplies including dry rations. The collected items are being dispatched across multiple regions and delivered to families in need. Donors continue to arrive at the TV Derana headquarters in Colombo with contributions today.
The Derana flood relief operation has been underway for over a week now. So far we have seen many adults joining with us throughout this operation, and now we have a group of children. So where are you from and what brings you here?
So we are from Building Blocks Montessori, Panadura. This is the children from the Panadura branch and our teachers. So today we are here to present these donations to children just like this affected by the floods and the landslides. So we've come all the way from Panadura to do this donation for these children because I think it's very important. Like you said, mostly what we have seen is adults engaging in these operations. But I think from a very young age, it's very important that children also are given the opportunity to engage in such initiatives because it's important to instill values like empathy, sharing, caring, and also to help one another. So they've donated very happily their Christmas gifts prepared by their parents.
And the Colombo Bulls closed in negative territory today as a result of price losses in counters such as Sampath Bank, John Keel's Holdings and Commercial Bank. The benchmark SPI lost 1.51% to close at 21,497.08, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 decreased by 1.74% to end the day at 5,925.63. Market turnover was 3.96 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers, purchasing shares worth 71 million rupees. Now here's a look at today's foreign exchange rates. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Have a great night and most importantly, stay safe.